Welcome to another live stream, everybody. I'm back on a Friday evening, and I have with me Abdul Sameer. Abdul is an ex-Muslim. We'll get into that discussion here in a minute. I wanted to have somebody new onto the channel. I want to have things fresh in here. Also, if everybody's here, even if they don't know Abdullah right now, maybe by the end of this stream you may. And if you have any questions for Abdullah near the end of this stream, I'm going to be putting the stream yard link into the chat, and we'll have people come up and talk to Abdullah and ask him some questions if you want to see what he says. But first off, Abdullah Sameer, welcome to my channel. Can you come on up and introduce yourself to everybody and let them know who you are and where they can find you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Abdullah Sameer, ex-Muslim, been making content on the topic of Islam for about 6 years now. 6 years, yeah, 2015, 2016-ish. And yeah, I have a blog, friendlyexmuslim.com, where I have my best articles against Islam and some of my videos and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Excellent. So as you said, Abdullah, you are an ex-Muslim. So what are the reasons that made you leave Islam?
So it started off with me finding some things that didn't sit well with me. And in particular, it started with science in the Quran, scientific errors in the Quran, mistakes, things that started to make me wonder, like, is this actually from God or is this not from God? And then it went into the stories in the Quran, how they all seem to be, stories that some of them was just like absurd, ridiculous stories, like the story of Dhul Qarnayn, this great king that went from the edge of the earth to the other edge of the earth. He found where the sun set and the sun rises, and and so these things caused me problems. And what I did was I actually buried my doubts. So this all started with me on Facebook. So believe it or not, I was a Muslim, religious, practicing Muslim. Like, I used to pray 5 times a day. Everything about my life was Islam. So I missed a point. I forgot to tell you that I actually converted to Sunni Islam. So I was born in a less orthodox sect of Islam, like a minority sect, which is from the Shia, called Ismaili. There's like 10 million, 15 million something Ismailis in the world. Really small sect. And in this sect, we don't follow the Quran. We follow this living guide, Aga Khan, right? And so when I converted away from this sect, which is what my dad raised me in, to Sunni Islam, and so I was like a new Muslim because I didn't know any of the stuff. I never read the Quran. I never prayed 5 times a day. Ismailis had a different prayer. So I became like a born again Muslim, you could say. And so I took it very seriously. I married a Muslim woman. I used to pray at the office. I used to pray. I used to eat halal food only, no music in my house. Kids weren't allowed to watch TV and stuff like that, all of that stuff, because it's, un-Islamic influence. You put the kids in Islamic school. So I was pretty serious about this. And when I started having doubts in 2015, what happened was there was a guy on Facebook. I was chatting with a friend of mine, and he said, I'm a Christian and I almost became Muslim. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, let's talk. So I messaged him and I said, what do you mean you almost became Muslim? He's like, yeah, I almost became Muslim. But then I realized that the stories in the Quran are copied from Jewish folk tales. I was like, what? I said, come on, give me a break. I said, these stories are from God. These stories all came from the same truth, right? And he said, you should look into it. And I said, okay. So then I started looking into it. And he said, look, what you're going to find is these stories, they don't come from revelation. They come from the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, which are like basically hearsay, like traditions which were passed on, from rabbi to rabbi, right? And they're not considered to be revelation, right? And it gets a little bit more complicated and technical than that. So I don't use this point when I'm talking about why people should not be Muslim, or why Islam is false. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But this is what got me into it. And so then I started having doubts, and then I started looking into the story of Dhul Qarnayn, which was, again, a major story in the Quran, in Surah Kahf, where it talks about, all of this amazing crazy things that this king does, Dolkanin, the one with two horns. And he went to the place where the sun rises. He went to the place where the sun sets, which is impossible. How do you find? There is no place of sunset. It's like finding a rainbow. There's no leprechaun at the end of the rainbow because you can never reach the rainbow because it's an optical illusion, right? The horizon is similar. It's not something you can actually reach because the earth is not flat. But the author of the Quran, the way he's writing it, it's like he thinks the earth is flat. It's like he thinks the so anyway, so this caused me some doubt, and then I ended up basically saying, okay, you know what, I'm just going to bury my doubts. I'm just going to be Muslim. And so that's what I did. I just buried my doubts, and I was Muslim for another year. Then in 2016, I was in the mosque in Ramadan, listening to the Imam talk about, oh, these dumb scientists, they don't know anything. The Quran says the sky is held up without any pillars, and that's the truth, or something to that effect, right? And his name was Sheikh Dawood, but this was in Ontario, right? Anyways, so I was there at the mosque, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't even make sense what he's saying, right? And so I had my doubts come back to me, right? And then this time I'm like, I'm gonna find out what is the truth. Like, I can't live like this anymore, bearing these doubts. And so I started looking into it, and the more I looked into it, the more I felt that this can't be true. It all started off with like holes, like scientific stories in the Quran not making sense. But as time went on, I started to become more confident, and I realized there's no good reason to believe in this. So then I wanted to make a blog, and I started to share my story with others. And I decided, like, if I can find the truth that Islam is false and Muhammad was a false prophet, then maybe I can help other people. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Excellent, excellent. I think that's I think it's a wonderful story. Now there was a person here in the chat. I think he does remember you. XYZ said, I first saw Abdul Sameer with David Wood and Apostate Prophet after the Golden Showers attack by Muhammad Hijab. So were you on the David Wood's channel with Apostate Prophet after that?
Yeah, we talked about what happened. So this he was going nuts. Muhammad Hijab has talked about me a lot. He's attacked me a lot. I mean, he's a kind of interesting character that he doesn't talk to me, but he has talked about me multiple times. And I was also the target of his abuse. Not me, well, actually me too, but it started off with my wife and Abdullah Gondal's wife and Apostle Prophet's wife and David Wood's wife. And then it ended up coming to me as well. He was just being very vile. He was saying, he posted this thing on his Facebook, and he did this on Facebook, not on YouTube. So it was like limited visibility. He's like telling my wife, if you want a real man, I'll hook you up with a Muslim man, because I'm not Muslim, right? And in Vancouver, this and that. And it's like so cringe. It's so stupid. And then he interviewed a friend of mine, a former Muslim friend of mine. And it was sad because this friend of mine was actually my friend. Even though he was Muslim, I used to help him out. So I left Islam, but I don't care if someone's Muslim or not Muslim. That's not the issue, right? So I was helping him out. I helped him to get a job. I helped him to so many things I did for this guy. And then he was like bad mouthing me to Muhammad Hijab. It was so bad. It was so pathetic. So anyway, so I did a response to that. And like, that guy looked so bad. He looked so ridiculous because I had like all of these screenshots when I was like lending him money. I was like I helped him to get a job. And this guy was just like slandering me, like laughing about me. Oh, this guy is so dumb. He doesn't know anything about Islam. And it was like, oh my God. Anyways, I think he must have regretted it because anyways, so Muhammad Hijab, that's the type of guy he is. He's a loose cannon. He does these crazy things. He said these crazy things. But yeah, I've had my my share. Not only him, also Dawa Man came after me, and he said I left Islam. I don't know if you know Dawa Man. He's an extreme Salafi. He's like, oh, I left Islam for an atheist girlfriend, which was totally false. I never had a girlfriend in my life. I only had my wife. I just got married. We had like a kind of arranged marriage, sort of, and there was no dating. I never dated. I met her. I liked her. I met her family. We got married. And that was it. And she was Muslim. and she's a Muslim convert. Like she was Christian. She became Muslim before she met me. We were married. I left Islam. She stayed Muslim for some time. So there's no atheist girl. Even now, she's not atheist, right? I'm atheist. She's not atheist. So it was just like false information. He just like lied about me, and then he apologized because then people. I posted a clip of him like saying this. I didn't even add any comments. I just posted a clip of him saying, because everybody started telling him, "Hey, this is wrong. This is wrong. He's not like he. That's not what happened." And yeah, so you get your fair share of drama being an ex-Muslim activist. You get like everybody comes after you. People lie and slander you. Nobody tried to kill me, as far as I know, unless I just wasn't aware of it. But they did. They did try to come after my livelihood. So David Wood said the same thing, that when he started talking about Islam, they went to his university and tried to get him kicked out. Same thing happened with me. Someone's asking if she's still a Muslim. Yeah, she prefers I don't talk about her, so I'm not going to say much about her. But anyways, so yeah, David Wood had the same issue. I had the same issue. People called my office where I was working. I work as a software developer. I'm in software. I'm a computer guy. I don't do this for a living, although I do have I do hope one day I can be a content creator and a full-time activist. It's just not possible with I have 5 kids and all that, so it's just not possible, right?
I definitely hear you there. I've got 5 kids as well, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
mind being a Christian content creator here on YouTube as well. But as I say, I just keep praying to God. Eventually, if it's within His will, then I'll be doing it. If not, then I won't be. I'll be continuing working and still putting up videos and doing live streams like I do now. So I definitely understand. With 5 kids, you definitely need to have the extra income that's coming in, that's solid income, of
Yeah.
course, right?
It is a grind for sure. Like, you came home from work, you're tired, and you're doing this. That's the challenge in being a part-time, activist. It's like you have a life still, and you still got to pay the bills. So that's the challenge. But I do love doing this, which is why I'm doing it. I mean, in this case, your channel is much smaller than mine, but I did want to talk to you because I think there's some interesting things to talk about, especially when it comes to some of the claims that Muslims make about the Bible, and I do have some opinions on that. So we can, when we get to that, we can talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. And for everybody into the chat, and I just want to take a few seconds just to acknowledge some of the people in the chat: Zach Black and Chuck Canuck, Christian Family Man, Gedalia. Again, Gedalia, thank you very much for all the support that you've been showing the channel, which is why you're the newest admin to the team. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. Michael, how you doing? God bless you, brother. XYZ. There's a few people. I think Ask Truth Apologetics was in there. I think I seen him talking earlier as well. And if anybody that's in here has not subscribed to Ask Truth Apologetics yet, he's definitely a very well-spoken Christian, a really good guy. I love doing live streams with him and talking with him. So, but anyway, just to get off, saying hi to the subscribers now. Staying with Islam for a second, and then we'll get into the Islamic arguments against Christianity and how they're nonsensical and whatnot. But just dealing with Islam to start off with, you said that it was the scientific so-called miracles in the Quran that was one of your reasons why you felt that it wasn't sufficient enough. Now, in the Muslim world, if you go to your imam, if you go to your scholars, what are they going to tell you if you say, I have issues with this?
So I'm glad you asked that. I like talking about this much more than I like talking about my story. So it's a wonderful question. So first of all, the scientific miracles claim is definitely a modern thing. So Zakir Naik, actually even before Zakir Naik. So basically in the 90s, there was this big conference. I forget what it was called, but it was basically Science in the Quran conference done by Saudi. And they invited all of these experts, people, scientists and geologists and whatever, like embryologists and all these different people to this thing. They wined and dined them. I don't know what type of wine because they don't have wine in Saudi Arabia, but they wined and dined them. And they put them on the stage and they said, tell us what you think about, well, I don't think it was exactly tell us what you think. It's like, tell us what you like about the Quran and how it matches science or something, right? And a lot of them made a bunch of statements that were now cut, and those statements now were written in books and published everywhere. And so one of my friends, his name is Pete the Rationalizer. He's another guy that almost became Muslim. He actually went and interviewed a bunch of these guys. Is amazing, such an amazing guy. He went and he found these people that were invited to Saudi, and he asked them, do you agree with what your statement is being used to defend that the Quran is a word of God? And most all of them were like, no, that wasn't the point. We weren't trying to, like, he said these things, but that wasn't the point of what we were trying to say. We were just pointing out some science or whatever. I don't remember exactly what they said, but he interviewed them one by one, and like a bunch of them agreed. The one that didn't agree to this day is Dr. Keith Moore. Now, anytime anytime you talk about science in the Quran, there's always one name they're gonna mention. It's like guaranteed. Do you know about Dr. Keith Moore, embryologist at the University of Toronto? He said the Quran is amazing, like whatever, right? So it's this one guy out of like all of the hundreds of embryologists in the world, this one guy that also was sent to Saudi, and I don't know how much money they gave him to say this, never converted to Islam, but he made this statement about the Quran being amazing. But like when you actually look into it, like I have an article on my blog on embryology. Like I got the book, like a picture of the book. I mean, like a page where he talks about embryology, and it's not even that amazing what he's saying. He's saying like, okay, it's mentioned in the Quran, so and so and so, and so, resembles the. Even I disagree with that, but he said that, and then he also mentioned what Plato said and the Chinese said, and like different group. So it's like, okay, well, these other people also talked about it, so what's the big deal then? And this was before the Quran, and the fact is that it's not even right what the Quran says, but that's a different point altogether. But somehow, he's making this statement. So my friend Pete tried to get him to recant the statement. He refused. He's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Again, I hate to say how much money did Saudi give him, but I mean, that's what it seems like. Because if he really believed it was, from God, well, become Muslim. Like, okay, it's like it's right there, right? You're the expert that's claiming that this is like the true, like, amazing thing that he couldn't have known. But your actions are not matching your words. Something is fishy here, right? And that's not a logical argument I'm making. I'm saying, oh, maybe he got money for saying this, but his points are bad anyways. Like it doesn't make sense what he's saying. It's not even that convincing. But anyways, that's one thing. So this big conference, from this point, the scientific miracles thing, they wrote a book called A Brief Illustrated Guide to Understanding Islam, islamguide.com, I think it is. And this book went everywhere, including to me. I got a copy of it as well before I converted to Sunni Islam. Excuse me. And so this book like popularized a lot of these ideas. The mountains as pegs, embryology in the Quran. I don't know. There's a bunch of them, right? Like 7 heavens and atmospheres or whatever. And so this to me was convincing because I felt that if the book is from God, then it should have some external validation, right? It should be some sort of proof that it is from God. And so it didn't. So that was proof to me, right? And so when I started to look into it, though, I found that one by one, each one of these miracles fell apart. And they were like, and that's when I got to the point where I was like, well, forget the miracles. Like, it's not even accurate scientifically. But then Muslims would say, these, like, you shouldn't be reading science into it. Like, if you tell a Muslim this, like, oh, why are you reading science into the Quran? This is a modern, like, just like I told you, this is a modern thing. This is not, like, the Prophet never said, look at the scientific miracles. So why are you doing this, right? My response to that, so the Imam might say this, although I don't think most Imams are sophisticated enough to say this. The people who would say this are people like Hamza Soitis, people that are involved in dawah. They would know. Like, the Imam knows not, like, it's useless talking to most Imams. 99% of them would know. They would be like, clueless. They'd be like, just stuck for Allah, seek refuge from Allah, stay away from shaitan, don't listen to these people. Like, they don't have a response. They'll just be like, just don't listen to these people.
Well, and I even I read the article that Hamza did write after his I think it was discussion with one of the embryologists when they were at a conference as well. And he actually said that any Muslim apologist that was using the scientific miracle as an argument was basically lying. Um, just straight out, like he doesn't believe in the scientific miracles anymore, but he is still a Muslim.
Hamza, so the science, you don't have to believe in scientific miracles to be a Muslim. That's not a requirement of Islam. That's one of the tactics of the Dawah game, is to use this to promote Islam. To be a Muslim, you just believe the Quran is the word of God. That's it, and Muhammad is a prophet. But how you interpret it, I mean, that's kind of like up for negotiation. So now Hamza Sotis, and
Oh,
he's the
Abdullah, just give
yep,
me 1 second here, sir.
yep.
Gedalia, thank you so much for throwing out Abdullah Sameer's YouTube. But if you could go to the Abdullah Sameer YouTube page and post that for
Well,
everybody.
that's my old one. This is the new one.
Oh, the friendly ex-Muslim is the new one that you want everybody to be on?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Gedalia. I thought it was the wrong one. I'll have to change it in the description, though.
Yeah.
But that's no problem. I can definitely change it in the description.
Yeah, it's not a bit like, you don't worry about promoting my channel, because honestly, my channel is pretty big already. I mean, I'm happy for you to promote it. I appreciate it. But the reason I wanted to come in and talk to you guys is just because, there was some interesting things which I think we have in common that are worth talking about, even though you're Christian and I'm atheist. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Gedalia.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll get off the Hamza Tortis thing now. When you were, let's say, a Muslim, and you were interacting with Christians on Facebook or any other social media, what do you feel was the best arguments that the Christians were using at that time, or ex-Muslims that were atheists that were talking to you? What was something that made you think as a Muslim, hey, wait, is this true or isn't it?
So so this was what started my journey. Like I told you, that Facebook conversation I had with that guy, and then the story of Dhul Qarnayn and how it didn't make any sense, and how there's all these people, Gog and Magog, all these creatures or humans, whatever they are, somewhere trapped behind a gate, a mountain. That's not really possible. So these things cause me massive doubt. And
Don't mind everybody.
Sorry about that. That was my son.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, what are you asking me? The best arguments against Islam?
Yeah, like when you were a Muslim, like what were the best arguments you heard when you were against Islam, when you were a Muslim, that made you think, hey, wait, this is something I might have to look into? Like, I know that the Zulkarnain and
that
thing
was it.
there.
That was
Okay.
what opened the floodgates. There wasn't anything else. Everything else was just like, it didn't. I think it's kind of the way it works is, you get small little holes in your iman, your belief. It doesn't happen. Like for me, what happened is, it was like, certain small little things caused me a lot of doubt. Not a lot of doubt. It caused me a little bit of doubt, and started to make me think that, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I'll give you a silly example. There's a lot of silly things, and this didn't make me not Muslim, but it made me kind of think, it doesn't make sense. In Muslim culture, you always shut the bathroom door. And if you don't, Muslims will tell you, well, you have to, because shaitan is in the washroom, like the devil, eh? The devils are in the washroom. And then I was thinking to myself, like, how does this even make sense? Because shaitan, he doesn't, like, he can go through the door. Like he's not like a physical being. He shut the door. Help, I can't get out of the washroom. Let me out. Like, it doesn't work like that. Apparently he lives in your nose and all this weird stuff according to Hadith, right? So I was like, but this actually made me wonder, right? And to be honest, another thing that actually caused me doubt was, when I was discussing with an atheist at my office. He actually was asking me about prayer, like dua, and I was like, I used to believe that it actually worked, right? But I ended up, when I looked into it, I mean, there was a Harvard prayer study that was done, and in the study, it seemed to show that, like, prayer has no effect, because no matter whether someone was prayed for or not prayed for, or placebo, it was, all of them had the same effect. In fact, some of the people that were told that, someone's praying for you, it actually took them longer to get better in the hospital because they felt like anxious or whatever. They suspected maybe there was some expectation value or something like that. So this actually caused me doubt as well, that I believe in Allah and I'm praying to him, but like, I was also taught that when you go into the car, you have to say this adhkar, subhanallah. You say this thing in Arabic that protects you. But like, I thought about it. I'm like, well, even if I say that, people still get in accidents. So, and do I really believe? And now I was like, really studying. These are small little things, right? If I say this and does that mean the person that's didn't say it would get an accident, the person that said it wouldn't get an accident? So I started being, like trying to be logical for some reason. These things were starting to kind of quite go in my mind. And then I was like, it doesn't work like that. Whether you say the thing or not, and I think this is kind of like the small little things that kind of they bothered me, but I just buried them. And then eventually the floodgates happened when I had these major issues. Then I started reading everything I could find. Everything I could find about Islam is that's when all these big things happen.
Right on. Now, what I'm going to do is I did have a question up in the chat a little bit. So I'm going to post it onto the screen here. It says, what is Abdul Sameer's opinion on the Ahmad debate versus Anis Sharosh and all the editing did, as well as his negative influence on the future of Islamic apologist, a la medical doctor?
Yeah, I never saw that debate, so I don't know anything about that. I do think that Ahmed Didat, the style, I don't like his style. I just think he's a showman. He would come on the stage, and okay, so we can maybe talk about Christianity, because now we're getting into what I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
Ahmed Didat, he would do these things that would be like bombastic. He would show up on the stage, show me where in the Bible it says Jesus is God, and I'll give you $100. Like, he would say these things. And now he's popularized these ideas among Muslims that don't even read the Bible, pretty much none of them, and they believe him. And now to this day, you still have people telling you, and it drives me crazy. It makes me so mad when they say this, that it doesn't say in the Bible that Jesus is God. I'm like, yes, it does. It's all over. It's like, explicitly explicit in John. But it's like all over the place, right? Jesus, whether you son of God or divine, or he's with God and he's judging and all of these different things. He's with Abraham. It's all over the Bible, right?
Mhm.
So this is so dishonest. It just drives me nuts when I hear that, because when you attack a religion, you don't want to straw man the religion, because then you're not attacking the religion, you're attacking a straw man. And that doesn't work. That doesn't help you. That doesn't gain anything. So I have the same issue when people attack Islam and they straw man Islam. So I want to be honest, I want to be fair, and I want to be just in whatever arguments I'm making against anyone's, any point, any argument I make, religious, not religious, whatever, any sort of argument. I want to be just and fair, and I don't want to straw man. I want to steel man my opponent. I want to understand them and like actually attack what they believe, not make up something that's not, because that's a common trope for Muslims. And it's like, Jesus isn't God. Okay, I don't believe he's God. I'm an atheist. But why are you saying the Bible says that? But it's clear Christianity, that's the whole point of Christianity, is that Jesus died for your sins and he's God, and all that stuff. So that really gets under my skin.
And like what you just said is what I feel Muslims should honestly say. Like, I can honestly say as a Christian that if I read the Quran and I read the Hadiths, it does depict Muhammad as their prophet. Do I believe he's a true prophet of God? Heck no, definitely not. But if I was to read their Quran and their Hadiths, it does depict him as their prophet. So I wouldn't say that in Islam, Muhammad is not a prophet. Like that's just ridiculous to
Well,
try to say, right?
some Christians do say things I've heard, which I think gets into the realm of stretching or imagination, where they say things like, according to Islam, according to the Quran, Jesus is better than Muhammad. I mean, those type of things, now it's like really stretching it, because now what you're doing is you're creating a belief that no Muslim has, and you're trying to cherry pick the text to make it seem a certain way that it's, in my opinion, is not at all representative of what anybody believes. And there's a certain popular Christian preacher online that does this very often. He will twist the Islamic text so badly that it's like the Islam he's preaching, like no Muslim follows. Like, for example, he once said, and I'm like, I couldn't believe this when I heard this. He found some obscure tafsir or something or other that said that Surah Falak and Surah Nas, the last two verses of the Quran, which have to do with seeking refuge in Allah from shaitan, has to do with, I can't even embarrass to say it, seeking refuge in Allah from Muhammad's penis. This is one of those guys, like, he found some Islamic reference to this weird, like, I'm like, it's so comical. It's like it's in the realm of delusional now. Like, no Muslim, like, this guy speaks Arabic, so he found this text. He didn't make it up, but it's like, obviously, like, nobody believes that. Like, it's just completely out of this world sort of thing, right? I mean, usually it's not that bad, but I mean, this is like, when you get to that point, I'm like, hey, like, come on, like, be like, pick on things that people actually believe.
Yeah. Now,
You don't need to make up stuff.
the only thing that I would say is, I don't think that it's making stuff up if we were
Yeah.
to say that the Quran depicts Jesus in a brighter light than what it depicts Muhammad,
How so?
right? We can look at Jesus has the actual attributes of Allah, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe that Muhammad has the actual attributes of Allah
No.
in the Quran. Also in the Quran, Jesus doesn't taste death,
No.
right? Muhammad tastes death. Now, also, if we look into the Quran, Jesus did not have a father, an earthly father. He only had an earthly mother. There has not been one other prophet in the Quran where God has intervened for his birth to have him born,
Mhm.
right? So if we get all of these verses about Jesus and how he's distinct from every other prophet and how he's and things to this nature, I believe with the Quran, you can definitely show that Jesus is depicted in a brighter light than what Muhammad is. Now, if you start going into the Hadith is going to be a little bit different story,
Mhm.
right? Now, I do believe that a lot of Muslims, I do believe that the Hadith was written a couple of hundred years later, so they wanted to try to make Muhammad a little bit better than what he actually was. If he existed at the time that he lived in, there could have been a guy named Muhammad. There might not have been. I'm not jumping into that argument either way. But the Muslims at the time, 200 years after Muhammad, that's when you start seeing the um, there's now, I'm not sure if you agreed with this, but Muslims actually told me that Muhammad is going to have Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a wife in paradise.
Yeah, there was a week. I think it's a weak hadith. It mentions Mary, and it mentions the wife of Pharaoh,
Yeah.
Asiya, and I forget what else. But yeah, I think that's a weak hadith. I think so. But anyways, yeah, some Muslims believe this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's if you get into the later hadith and things to this nature, I think that Muslims may be able to make more of an argument to where Muhammad and Jesus are a little bit more in the same area. But if we just stick to the Quran alone, I don't think that you can doubt that the Quran depicts Jesus in a brighter light than what it depicts Muhammad, of course.
So what I would say to that, now again, I'm totally impartial because I don't believe in any of this, but you make some good points. So you said Jesus had no father. He's the only prophet ever had, this thing. He didn't taste death. Muhammad is considered to be in paradise right now. Basically he has a window to paradise. But also another thing I didn't mention is Jesus is sinless, whereas Muhammad did make some mistakes in his life, which I mentioned in the Quran, right? The problem with trying to take the Quran without the Hadith is that you are no longer talking about Sunni Islam. You a Quranist can come up with any sort of weird opinion about what the Quran is saying without the context of the Hadith, and this is actually a major challenge for non-Muslim from academics. Never mind non-Muslim academics. This is a big challenge. How do we interpret the Quran without the Hadith? Because and so there's some tricks they come up with. I don't totally understand how they do this, but I know it's very difficult. But if you're not looking at the Hadith to explain the Quran, you're not talking about Islam anymore, Sunni Islam. If it's Shia Islam, then you're talking about the Shia Hadith. If you're talking about Sunni Islam, the Sunni Hadith. I don't know much about Shia Hadith, so let's talk about Sunni Hadith. So Muhammad is considered, so Jesus for sure, this is where we come into my article and what I wrote. It doesn't make any sense that according to Islam, Jesus is Ruhullah, the Spirit of God, the Word of God, Kalamullah, I think. He is the basically the Messiah, right? And he has all these titles. And again, like you said, he had a virgin birth, right? But none of this makes sense in the context of Islam. And the reason I say that is because when you look at, the prophets, why did God all of a sudden decide to make an exception for Jesus? In Christianity, there's a reason why. He's not any normal man. He's special. He's Son of God. In Islam, it's like he just made this exception and that's it. It's just like he's just a prophet. But he doesn't have a father. So it's weird. It doesn't fit, right? It starts to look like this is out of place. Then when you look at another funny thing about Islam is there's so many, but let's talk about the crucifixion. Jesus is crucified, but he's not crucified. So now you have it's now getting almost comical. In Christianity, he died and he was sacrificed and he became the Messiah because of that. Jews don't accept that, but that's how Christianity was born, because Jesus was killed on the cross, right? But in Islam, you have this story that was going around that Jesus was crucified, and then for some reason, Allah put someone else up there, and Jesus didn't die. He went up to Jannah or something, right? And he's gonna come back. It's like, what? The old switcheroo? God just played switcheroo? Why did he kill somebody else? Some people will say that he killed, I don't know, some bad person or something.
Well, some say Judas, some
I was gonna say
that,
Judas, yeah, but why was he tricking people then? Why would he make it look like Jesus? Now, of course, what makes more sense and what's more logical and what's more obvious and what's more reasonable to believe is that God came. I mean, the story is being edited to fit a new religion, right? That seems to make more sense because it's comically dumb. Why would God do that? He basically tricked people into thinking Jesus was killed and therefore created Christianity. So Allah is the founder of Christianity because he tricked people. And some people don't like the way I'm putting it, but it does appear to be that, it's the Quran says someone that appeared to be like him was put on the cross, and some people will interpret it differently, but isn't Allah responsible for Christianity then? Right, the biggest false religion on earth after Islam is a true religion, but Christianity has all these billions of followers, and it's all because Allah did this. Couldn't he just but the problem is Muhammad wanted the story to fit, right? So anyways, the other issue with what Muhammad is preaching, the Quran, is that this thing about the gospel or the Injil, let's say Injil. The Injil is not, again, something that makes sense because in Christianity, you have 4 gospels. If Injil is gospel, there should be 4 Injils. But that's not what Injil means in Islam. In Islam, Injil is a book that was given to Jesus, just like, the Psalms was given to Solomon. Is it David?
I actually have, to David. Psalms were given to David. But I actually have a theory on the Injil and the 4 Gospels, because we know Tatian had writ the Diatessaron early on, and that was a compilation of the 4 Gospels into one book.
Okay.
So the Diatessaron was actually being circulated in Arabia even at the time of Muhammad. So
Oh,
I believe that Diatessaron, which is the collection of the four gospels in one book, is the actual Injil that Muhammad would have been talking about.
interesting. Yeah. So some, but again, there's some. The problem with that is, like the Quran says, the Injil was given to Jesus. Jesus was already dead by the time the Gospels were written, because the Gospels are about Jesus's death, right, and his life and all that. But the Quran, it talks about this. The Quran it was revealed to Muhammad. He got a book.
Yeah, but
So
in you saying that though, where Muslims would say that the Injil was given to Jesus and then
yeah.
Jesus died, that's not actually true, because Muslims will say that it was just revelation that was given to Jesus orally, but we know from Surah 7:157 that Muhammad was written in what they have of the Torah and the Injil. The Arabic word there actually means written, not just mentioned, right? So we can identify within the Quranic text that the Injil was actually something written down. And then we have many Islamic scholars that are trying to point to the Gospel of John, the Comforter, the Parakletos verses, to try to prove that Muhammad was prophesied in the previous scriptures. Now, it makes no sense at all for a Muslim to make that claim and then say those comforter verses are corrupted. Well, if it's corrupted, then it's not a prophecy of your prophet, because a prophecy could only, or sorry, a true prophecy could only come from the true God at that point, right? A true prophecy is not going to come from a fake God. And anybody religious would agree with that, right? So their argumentation when it comes to that is off the wall, right?
Mm.
There's no consistency to their argument whatsoever. Like, yes, the Bible's corrupt, but we're going to quote the Bible to prove our prophet is true. But when
Mhm.
you ask me if that verse is originally in the Injil, we're going to say no, it's a part of the corrupted Injil. Like, it to me, it just doesn't make sense, and they're shooting themselves in the
Yeah,
foot.
it's cherry picking for sure, right? It's cherry picking. I was gonna say I don't the way I when I read the verses of the Quran that talk about the Injil and the Torah, it talks about even the Sabur, the Psalms. All of them are all kind of compared to the Quran as being a revealed book that was given to Jesus. So what I think, again, I'm not an academic, but what I think is that Muhammad misunderstood the what the Injil was, what the gospel was. I think he misunderstood that this was a book that was is considered how do you say it? Not divinely. How do you say it? It's inspired speech of God.
Yeah, well, I believe it's the divine inspiration of our Lord and Savior, the gospel, of course.
Yeah, but
But
it was
when it,
how because there's four gospels, right? And there's four different men that wrote them. So
yeah,
so they were inspired, divine. It's considered divine inspiration, right?
yeah, still,
Yeah,
because the Holy Spirit within them was bringing
yeah,
them to the knowledge of everything, right?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So this is very different than what the Quran is saying. Quran's not talking about full gospels. The Quran doesn't even know there's full gospels. The Quran doesn't understand that there's these people that wrote about Christianity was there, but somehow Muhammad seemed to get all the details wrong. Like not only that, the other point I have is that the biggest church, which was a Catholic church, he had no idea about it. There's no mention of a pope. There's mention of all these like obscure like things in the Quran, like for example the Sabians. The Sabians are some small, I don't know, religion or cult that's pretty much dead. But like it's important enough to mention the Sabians. Like nobody even knows what Sabians is today. But like he missed the Pope completely, which is like this major gigantic church, right? Um so my theory is that inspired with a God. Yeah. My theory is that Muhammad had a lot of information about Judaism, which is why the story about Moses is the biggest chapter in the Quran, Surah Baqarah, and he knew these stories and he heard them, but he seemed to really mess up when it came to Christianity. Like it's just so wrong. Nothing makes sense. Why is Jesus Messiah? What,
What
what, what does that even mean in
that
Islam?
that that was one of the things that I'd like to ask a Muslim as well. Is like,
Mhm.
can you define what a Messiah is?
Yeah.
And when they define what a Messiah is, it's just one that's been anointed by God. That's all they'll say
The
the
thing is,
definition of Messiah is.
what does that even mean?
And then I'll say, so you're telling me that Muhammad isn't anointed by God then because he's not the Messiah. Moses wasn't anointed by God then because he
Yeah.
wasn't the Messiah. David wasn't anointed by God because he wasn't the Messiah. And it
Yeah.
goes on from there. But in the obscure things that the Quran speaks about, like it actually presents Mary, like it gives an argument for Mary being a human being.
Yeah.
Like it actually argues that Mary is a human being. Like it, the Quran says that Jesus and his mother ate food.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
Hmm.
Like why would an all-knowing God feel that he would have to insert that two human beings that they believe are human beings actually ate food? Like to me that just
I well, the Quran also mentions Mary as part of the Trinity. I thought that's what you were going to mention.
well I know that it does mention Mary as part of the Trinity. Um it it's sad that Muhammad got the Trinity wrong. Um, maybe that's one reason why. Maybe he just didn't. Maybe he realized at that time that if he talked bad about the Christian religion, like truthfully, like started to go after Jesus and the Holy Spirit and the Father and everything, that he's probably just going to get wiped out, right? So. Oh, and our friend Hatun Tash is into the room. I agree with you, Hatun. Allah does get hungry too. um, but other than that, what do you think right now is the worst Muslim argument against the Christian scriptures?
Well, I think all of those things that we mentioned are problems. There's also the Mary and Aaron issue where it mixes up the mother. What is it?
Mary, yeah, Mary, the mother of Jesus,
Yeah.
is the sister of
Yes.
Aaron, um,
Yeah.
which I think, and which now we won't even get into which surah that's in because I don't think it's in Surah 7, is it?
I don't even remember. I don't remember the details. But
I,
yeah,
I don't.
so I think all of these are kind of good examples. One, the most stupidest example, the one that wins the prize, is that Jesus isn't God in the Bible. It's like when I hear that, I just want to like slap my head on the wall. And I don't even believe in the Bible. Like I'm an atheist, but it just makes me mad that it's so misrepresented, right? And it also makes me mad when Islam is misrepresented because I think we need to be fair. Like I said, other than that, I do have some other points that I think are kind of interesting. You may agree or not agree to some of them. One of them is that that I know not all Christians agree with this, but there's like a low Christology and high Christology that Bart Ehrman talks about. And when you look at the order of the Gospels, I think Mark is the first one, and then is it Matthew and then Luke?
Sorry, Mike. No, yeah, yeah. Mark, Matthew, Luke, and then
Luke and
John.
John. So
Yep.
Luke is where you get the virgin birth for the first time. Now, for some reason, Muhammad like stuck with this. This one stuck with Muhammad, and he added it into the Quran. But like none of the other ideas that were in the gospel about Jesus's birth, when he was joined to God when he died, like it says in Mark, or in John, he's with God. So somehow he took this idea that was in one of the later gospels and he put it in the Quran. So I think whatever information he had, he was just going with. I don't think he actually really had an idea, right? The other thing that I find is problematic about the Quran is that the story of the infancy gospel, like Jesus talking as a baby, we know where this story comes from. We know it comes from a Syriac infancy gospel. Like it says in the Quran,
Yeah, I think it's the infancy gospel of the Savior. I think it's called, isn't it?
19 Surah 19 verses 29 to 34. She pointed to the babe and they said, how can we talk to one who is a child in the cradle? He said, I am a servant of Allah, so on and so forth, right? And the same thing is in the infancy gospel. He said that Jesus spoke, and indeed, when he was lying in his cradle, he said to Mary, his mother, I am Jesus. But in the infancy gospel, he says, I am Jesus, the Son of God. So that part's not in the Quran. Just the part where he speaks as a baby. He says, yeah, I'm a baby, but I'm a servant of God. I'm Abdullah, right? I'm the servant of God. Um, what else? Yeah, so again, the main point, I think, the main issue, one of the biggest issues is that Christianity is like the is more coherent as an ideology when it comes to Jesus. But in Islam, it's like he's out of place. He doesn't fit. It's like you have a Marvel movie and you put Batman. He's a DC character. He's not part of Marvel. Like you're supposed to have like X-Men and stuff, but somehow Marvel, or like Bugs Bunny appears in a Marvel movie. Like he's not part of that universe. Like someone put him in there, right? He doesn't fit, right? That's what's happening with the Quran. That's what seems to be happening. Um, and there was something else I wanted to say about this, which I forgot now what it was. Something to do with Jesus. Anyways, if I remember, I'll bring it up.
Well, there was something that I wanted to bring up about Jesus in the Quran and what Muhammad would have done or what he was thinking of anyways. But I just want to give a quick shout out to Brother Charlie. Hello to you as well. And I do have my wife in the chat. So I will go through this. I do thank first and foremost my God, my Lord and Savior, for allowing me to be able to do this type of thing and have these nice conversations with people online. Next, I'd love to thank my wife that gives the time and support for me being on YouTube, doing my religious talking with everybody else. And also my children that put up with a dad that is on his computer all the time that tells them, shh, shh, I'm going live in 10 minutes. Shh. Try to stay away from the camera. I don't want people to see you online and things to that nature. But I do thank all my subscribers as well out there. Thank you very much for showing your support. Now, getting on to the question that I had about Jesus, or should we say Isa? Why is Jesus Isa in the Quran? Why is his name Isa?
Well, the word Jesus is English, like it's an English word, right? That came later on.
Yeah.
Obviously in the Hebrew it would be Esau or something. I don't know.
Iosus. Yep.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I
it's
don't know
not
much
from
about.
Isa. But you
No,
don't, that doesn't
no, I don't know
translate
anything about
into
that.
Isa in Arabic. Oh, okay. Now, what I would say here is Isa in Arabic would translate, and it shouldn't go from the Greek. Let's just keep that in mind, right? We should be going by Jesus' initial name, right? Because Allah being God to the Muslim, like we have to think as if this Allah is actually given this revelation to the Muslims, right? Now, if we were going from by that, the translation should have been Yehoshua, right? Or Yeshua. It would have been his Hebrew name. Now, a lot of Muslims are going to say, and a lot of other people will say, well, Jesus didn't speak Hebrew. It would have been Aramaic because that would have been his mother tongue at the time. But what a lot of people don't realize that is in the Jewish tradition, Jewish people believe that the mother of the child, when she's either about to or had just given birth to the baby, then an angel comes down and whispers into the mother's ear the Hebrew name of the baby. So Jesus being a Messiah, being an Israelite, and of course, like that would have happened as well. So we can understand that his birth name probably would have been a Hebrew name at the time, Yehoshua, Yeshua, however you want to pronounce it, of course, right? But now we have in the Quran where it's Isa. Now, the only thing that makes sense to me is Isa from the Bible, the one God hated. Now,
The one
this
God
only,
hated.
yeah, Isa in the Quran is the one that God hated in the womb. That's just the verse. It's not technically that God actually hated him, but it's what would transpire throughout the lifetime and whatnot. And
So
we
I
could
don't
jump.
follow, I don't understand. Who God hated?
So Jake, just a second here.
Yeah.
I'll get into that
Okay.
after
Sure.
I explain this out.
I,
But anyways, it was the one that God hated. And yeah, Esau is the brother of Jacob in the Bible. Okay, now the Jews hated Jesus. The Jews that actually existed, they hated Jesus. They blasphemed against him. They said many bad things about him and things to this nature. Now there was Jews, a lot of them in the area of Muhammad because he was trying to convert them. What makes sense to me is there was a Jewish community saying, let's get this guy going. Let's tell him that Jesus' name was Isa.
Oh my god. If that's true, that is hilarious. Like that's ultimate trolling. And there's another example of this in the Quran. I mean, this is interesting. I'd love to look a little bit more into this. See the etymology of Isa, where it comes from. But check this out. You definitely know this. There's a verse in the Quran that says that let me just find it because it's like it's so funny. It's like, and I can actually show it on my screen too. Hold on. Let me just, I have, hold on 1 second. Okay, share my screen. Share screen, 1 second. Window. Okay. Is that the right one? Okay, yeah, it's that one. So there's this, okay. So the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. That is a statement from their mouths. They imitate the saying of those who disbelieve before them. I don't know what that second part means, who they're imitating, but anyways. May Allah destroy them, how they're deluded. Now, I sometimes wonder, did the Jews at the time trick Muhammad into putting this in the Quran? Because there's no Jewish person who believes this. There's no record of this in any Jewish books. I actually did as much research as I could to try to figure this out. Rabbi Tovia Singal has a video. The funny thing is, Muslims send me this video when I talked about this. I don't know if they watched the video, but the video says that there's no record of this. Like, maybe the people back then said that, which means, like, did they trick him? It's pretty funny. Like, I mean, this is not academic, like, we're just laughing about this, but like, it maybe, I don't know, like, I have to look into it.
Yeah,
But
and I agree. They could have been trolling him quite a few times. There's many stories in the Quran that the Jewish people at that time could have been. This guy really thinks he's a prophet, and he's taking our things and running with it. Let's throw him something else. But with that verse that you just quoted in the Quran, what really makes that even dumber, just to think about it, is we know what Christians believed Jesus being the Son of God meant, right? The Christians believed he is the eternal
yeah,
Son of God,
yeah, like
right?
literally, right? Son of God.
Yeah, like eternally existed, created everything, and is our Lord and Savior, entered his own creation. Yeah, we that's 100% what we believe. But there is not one Jewish person alive that would say that Ezra is the eternal Son of God. There is not one Jewish person on this earth.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Quran traps itself in this verse because what it does is it compares them to Christians. So you can't even say it's not literal. It's talking like literally son of God, which doesn't make any sense because Jews don't say that. Of course, Muslims have tried to sort of try to make this mean something else, but because of that comparison to Christians, it's just now like, it's not, you're stuck, like Allah is stuck. Like, and I said, again, my Muslim friends didn't like this, but if Allah was talking about a specific group of people, I mean, I was taught as a Muslim that Allah is, I have this right at the top of my blog, Allah ya'lamu man khalaq wa huwa al-latiful khabir. Does he who created not know, and he's a subtle, al-latif, and the acquainted, al-khabir. He knows the secrets of the universe, the atoms, how they join and whatever, quarks and all that stuff. And he knows the most grandest things, like the size of the universe, right? But apparently he made this blunder where instead of saying, and people tell me, and Muslim scholars say things like, Noman Ali Khan. Noman Ali Khan always talks about the Quranic Arabic and how it's a miracle and how it's so subtly beautiful, and the words are exactly the right precise word that could not be improved whatsoever. It was such a beautiful example, and they find all these miracles like that, right? Yet over here, all God had to say is the Arabian Jews said this. Instead, it says the Jews, which is just totally wrong. And everybody's scratching their heads, even including Muslims. Like, what is going on? Like, what's Allah talking about here? So, in my opinion, this one thing is enough to finish the Quran. Like, this is like a clear mistake. But people don't want to, they don't care about mistakes in the Quran because they don't want to disbelieve. They want to believe no matter what. That's the, it's difficult for people to let go of this, right? Sometimes. So You don't need more than that. I mean, I have like 100 articles or whatever and 300 videos and this and that, but like you don't even need all that. You just need one thing. This is one thing is enough, because the Quran claims the entire thing is from God. The entire thing is preserved. The entire thing is flawless. Yet this is where we end up, right? And by the way, I want to talk about, now I remember what I want to talk about. Unless you want to talk about this a little bit more, then I'll bring up my question.
No, go ahead.
So I don't know if you've noticed, but the data shows something really interesting, which is the biggest outflow of Christians that convert, they become Muslim, which is interesting. Islam, the Quran is actually pretty good at converting Christians. And I don't know if that's because most people are Christian in America, and maybe that's just the data is flawed, because it's statistically there's just a lot more Christians. But I know tons of Christian converts, like tons of them. Like there's so many famous ones, Yasha Evans and Yusuf Islam and
Oh,
you know,
whoa.
Bilal Phillips.
Did, you're quoting people. Okay, I agree that these people did say that they were Christian before they become Muslim, but that Joshua Evan guy,
Yeah.
he's definitely not a Christian. I challenge that guy at any point in time to come on to any show, and I will prove that he was never a Christian.
How
And
do you
it's
do
this,
that?
it because of the way he speaks about Christianity.
So, but
If you were a Christian, you would know about it.
But do you like? Would you say I hear this sometimes with ex-Muslims? So Ali Dawa is the most best example of this. He goes around telling people, say this, read this, pronounce this, recite this, answer this question, or you are a fake ex-Muslim. He called me a fake ex-Muslim, and then he realized that was a very stupid blunder to make. This was many, 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 many years ago, like before I was famous, whatever, right? And he was on Twitter bad mouthing. He always goes after women, so he was attacking like Sadia Hamid, or one of these ex-Muslim women, Alia Salim or something. And I was like, hey, first of all, why do you always pick on women, whether ex-Muslim women or Muslim women? And then second of all, how are you saying the fake ex-Muslims? They were Muslim, like, right? He's like, oh, yeah, and he called me a fake ex-Muslim. I said, what do you mean I'm fake ex-Muslim? And then and then he had no idea who I was. But then I showed him my blog, and then suddenly he decided, okay, now he wants to block me. First he said, come, I'll debate you, and come to Speaker's Corner, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, at the end of it, he blocked me. So this kind of thing of no true Scotsman, I mean, sometimes we use this to kind of, maybe he was a nominal Christian, like maybe he was not practicing Christian, maybe he was an uneducated Christian, because there's a lot of Muslims like that leave Islam. I mean, I was a knowledgeable, scholarly, maybe not scholarly,
Yeah,
but
but
pious Muslim. But
you
like,
know
there's many
Joshua
Muslims that don't
Evans.
even pray. They don't pray. They don't fast. They eat pork. They drink alcohol, and they leave Islam. And now, those are the fake ex-Muslims. Even though they believe in Allah, they were doing all these bad things, right? So would you say like this is the same type of thing? Like Joshua Evans, maybe it's just a bad Christian. That like, are you saying he wasn't Christian? Period.
I'm definitely saying that because he's saying that he was uh, a youth pastor.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a youth pastor and you are still this negligent about the religion that you were supposed to pastor
Yeah.
people on,
Yeah.
you weren't. And it's the same as the old guy. I even forget his name now because he's such a waste of skin now. But he was a Christian preacher and did it for 20 years and left Christianity and found the truth in Islam and baloney.
Are you talking
don't.
about? Are you talking about Yusuf Estes?
Yes, Yusuf
Yeah,
Estes.
I know him
What a
really well.
clown.
I know him. I know him really well. I used to work with him.
He's a
I
clown.
mean, I used to help him with his dawah.
He needed help with his dawah because he's a clown. Trying to say that he's this preacher, been doing it for so long, but yet didn't know anything about the Bible.
So I want to show you what I'm talking about. If I can just share my screen one more time, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna
for sure.
pop up something.
And while you're doing this, while you're popping up your screen here, thank you, everybody. We still have over 30 people into the room. We're getting more people as the time goes. What I will be doing is I will be opening up the StreamYard in probably about 10 minutes or so after me and Abdullah have our little conversation. I'm going to open it up for the guests here. If anybody wants to join the live stream and they want to ask Abdullah any questions, feel free to join in. All I ask is I know that the Christians will not do it, but if any Muslims come on to the show, please do not troll because I will kick you immediately. And once I have your name, you'll never come back on the show again. So, with saying that, Abdullah does have his screen share up here, so now I'll go ahead and add it to the screen for you.
Yeah, so this is a Pew Research. This is good data, right? This is from January 26, 2018. The share of Americans who leave Islam is offset by those who become Muslim. So we know that a lot of people, like Muslims, have a lot of babies, which is why the numbers are staying big. But what I wanted to show you, which is very interesting, is this: most converts to Islam were raised Christian. Like, this is hard data here, and I'm telling you from my experiences as a former Muslim. Most, like, I know, including my wife, I know a lot of Christian converts. A lot. They're like tons of them, like even famous ones, like I was mentioning. I mentioned Yasha Evans and we got stuck on that. But like, Yusuf Islam, who is Cat Stevens, Yusuf Estes, Hamza Yusuf, there's so many Christian comment. Why do you think that is? Do you think that, like, the Quran is effective at convincing people to believe in Allah and give up Jesus? Why do you think this is?
Not at all. What it is it's somebody that's went to Islam that believes that the only way that they can validate themselves is to say that they're ex-Christian. I truly believe that those people that are saying that they're ex-Christian, they truly were not Christian. Now, the reason that I would say this is you have to have no brain. You have to have complete no sense at all to say that you are a full-hearted Christian. You left Christianity for Islam. Reason being is the evidence of the crucifixion, if nothing else. Like, it's it's not it's a fact of history that Jesus died by crucifixion. For you to go from that belief to deny that belief and to accept Islam, you yeah, you that person was never Christian in the first place to do that at all. There's no way.
So let me tell you, as a former Muslim, that the words you are saying sound exactly like the words I hear every day as an ex-Muslim. For you to leave Islam, the true religion of God, which is, you know, undeniable, you were never a Muslim. You were never a true Muslim. Nobody can actually. Can you imagine going
No,
from
no,
belief
but
in one God to
there's
belief that?
difference though,
Well, this is what I hear. I'm
because
telling you.
I'm using facts of history,
Well,
facts of
hold on a second.
reality,
To
right?
you, this is a fact, but people might not believe this fact. People
Well,
might question the fact, even if it's, let's say it is a fact. Let's say it's a fact that it's not a
unless
possible.
you're
Yeah.
unless you're a Jesus mythicist
Mhm.
like Richard
Well,
Carrier, or
well,
if
you
you're a
can.
Muslim,
Yeah.
those are the only two distinct groups in this world that would disagree that Jesus died by crucifixion, unless you can point out a
Yeah.
different
No,
another
but
worldview. But those are the only two.
someone that becomes Muslim is not denying Jesus' crucifixion per se. The denying that Jesus is God and that Jesus was
No,
raised from the dead and that he is the creator of the universe or the Son of God. Like, I'll give you an example of my wife. I mean, I don't know how religious she was, but she to me, she told me that Islam made more sense to her because the Trinity was confusing. And I hear this a lot from people. I hear some people say that they couldn't wrap their head around the Trinity, which to me, I get that. The Trinity is not supposed to be like your head's not supposed to be wrapped around it because it's unsolvable sort of mystery. That's how Ken Armstrong puts it. It's one of those things. It's a mystery that, it's not logical, but it's not supposed to be logical. It's like, she said it's like those Buddhist Zen puzzles that are unsolvable. It's like that. That's how
yeah,
she put it. She put it a nice
but
way.
somebody couldn't accept Islam with that view, though,
With which view?
that they couldn't understand the Trinity.
Why
They
not?
couldn't wrap their head around it. There's no way that they could accept Islam
Why is that?
because Allah is inconceivable to the human mind. Isn't that the same thing?
Well, they would say, again, I don't want to sound like a Muslim apologist because I don't believe in any God, but they would say one God is more logical and more coherent than three in one. Three entities in one, however you want to put it. So this is what I hear, right? But I am concerned that, that when we say someone is not, was not a proper Christian or was not a proper Muslim, my concern is that we're denying the own self-identification because we don't like what they did. Like when it's kind of like when Muslims say Taliban is not, they're not Muslims. To me, it's laughable to say that because you don't like what they're doing. ISIS, you don't like what ISIS is doing. That doesn't make them not Muslim. They may be deluded in, according to many Muslims, they would say ISIS is deluded and the extremists and the twisting, they'll say they're twisting the religion out of context and the taking, even though, many people would say, well, no, ISIS and these people are doing exactly what Muhammad did. But these Muslims, majority of Muslims, like 99%, would be like ISIS. They're not following Islam. Some would even say they're not Muslim. Some said to me, I was never Muslim. Like people say that to me, I was never Muslim. And it's hilarious because I was obviously Muslim. Everyone that knows me knows I was Muslim. Like there's no doubt about it. But if someone like me can be told that I was never Muslim, then I think we should definitely, instead of denying that someone's was, we can deny they knew Christianity. We can say, okay, maybe they were bad Christians, maybe they didn't understand Christianity. That I think would be more fair than saying they were not Christians. But it depends on your definition of what a Christian is, I guess. Like what is your definition of what is a Christian to you? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I mute my mic in between just so I don't have
Oh
any
yeah, that's fine.
background noise when you're talking to interrupt you. But yeah, the definition of a Christian to me is one that accepts the triune God. There's a few other things. They must worship the Son as the Father, as we see in the Bible. The way that I look at it, and I'm not a normal Christian, but Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, they're all Christian. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Unitarians, people that deny the triunity of God, they are not Christian because they're disagreeing with what the actual Bible says.
Did you say you're not a normal Christian?
In some sense, because of the way that I guess I would define it. If you asked, let's say, a Catholic Christian, what it would indicate to be a Christian, you're going to get a lot of the church father traditions and things to that nature that you must accept, or you're not a Christian. Same with the Orthodox. So that's why I said that. I'm not a usual
Okay.
one because a lot of people right now are Orthodox and Catholic. But the Protestants, of course, everybody in the chat, I think, would agree with exactly what I said. So
Yeah. So would you say the vast majority of Christians that so would you agree with me that just like the vast majority of Muslims are not practicing, the vast majority of Christians are also not practicing and also ignorant of the religion? Would you say that is true? Or like not ignorant, but like they're not religious, or they're not, like, they don't go deep into the religion, like the nominal Christians? Would you agree with that?
um, I wouldn't make that blanket statement about the majority of Christians out there. What I would say is there is people out there that proclaim to be Christian that definitely aren't, because they aren't following what they should follow. They're just using the name Christian as a name.
But didn't you just say all they have to do is accept the triune God?
Well, as I said, there's a few other things as well. I'm just not going to get into all of it. But
Okay.
yeah, there's some people that, sure, yeah, they'll say that Jesus is God while
Yeah.
they're going out to smoke a joint.
So they
Right.
wouldn't be Christian then?
I wouldn't believe they would be. I wouldn't consider them
So
Christian, only because we're allowed to judge the fruits of somebody.
but
So if you're not producing the fruit, the
Mhm.
good fruit that of God, then we can make that judgment call.
Now that's interesting because in Islam, you can be a sinful Muslim, but you're still Muslim. You can do like drugs or whatever, even, any sort of crime, but except for worshiping other than Allah, but you would still be Muslim because you're what it in Islam, most Muslim scholars differentiate between the act and the beliefs. So the beliefs are what keeps you as a Muslim. And as long as you believe still in Allah and Muhammad, then you could actually still commit sins and
Yeah,
you can be punished for them and you would be forgiven, or
that's
maybe
not
not forgiven.
following though.
Well, no,
The way that I say
yeah.
following is
Mhm,
that a Christian must live his Christian lifestyle.
mhm,
He's not to live a sinful lifestyle and like it. Like I'll give you an example of me. I become a Christian. I believe that in a born again Christian.
mhm.
I'm not one of these preacher type people, but I am a born again Christian. I was an atheist before I come to Christianity.
Mhm.
When I was an atheist, a lot of people on my channel already know, but I have 8 assaults, 5 of them causing bodily harm. I have a really big criminal record, in and out of jail. I've did a lot of bad things in my life. And the day I become a Christian, I hated that person. I hated everything that I did prior to that, and I've changed my life 1,000%. And and the way that I describe it to people is I had family members that would tell my cousins, "That's the cousin I don't want you to grow up like. You can't be like him." Now now my relatives are like, "That's who you need to be like. This is the person you need to look up to and to get some ideas from and things to that nature." So, and it isn't just me saying, it's my family seeing that complete 180 change in someone's lifestyle. So if that person isn't doing that and isn't making that lifestyle change, and then just continuing on to do what they've always done, they truly haven't been born again through the Spirit.
So does that mean they're gonna go to hell?
No.
But they're not Christian, you said.
Yeah, but we're not Muslims. I don't believe that just because
Oh, you
you're
don't. Oh,
I don't believe that just because you're an atheist you're going to hell.
oh, you
I,
don't believe I have to accept Jesus died for my sins to? I thought that was a requirement of faith, is you have to
when
accept that Jesus died for your sin
when do you have to do that?
before you die.
Okay. So you being an atheist today can be an atheist. Now, as a Christian, I can't make a determination on your eternal dwelling
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
right? I'm not going to say
of
you're
course.
going to hell. I'm not
Yeah,
going to say you're going to heaven,
yeah,
right? But in that same sense, if an atheist, and I give this explanation, and I'm going to use the thieves on the cross. When Jesus was on the cross, there was 2 thieves there. They weren't Christian. They weren't born again. They were committing crimes and they were committing sins. They were showing that they weren't born again. And the and the thief believed in Jesus on the cross, and Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." So this thief had accepted who Christ was and what Christ did, and was able to enter paradise based on his belief in Jesus.
but he had a
So,
belief in Jesus. So that's my question: that if you're saying someone's not Christian,
yeah,
doesn't that not mean that they're not going to go to
if
paradise
they
because?
if they have belief in Jesus, even up to the last second of their life,
Mhm.
like if that's when they get it and they get this, I'm not saying that that person is going to hell, and I'm not saying that person's going to heaven, but
Yeah.
if they confess Jesus at that hour of need, um, I believe that the Bible indicates that this person would be saved. It's not like I don't know. It's not like I view Islam in a different
It
way that
sounds
way.
like Islam, because Islam says the same thing, that as long as you accept Islam before you die, but again, in Islam, you're
No,
still
but
Muslim if you commit sins. As
and
long,
that's the difference. Like you can sin as a Muslim
yeah,
your whole life
yeah,
up to the day that you die, and you're still going to be forgiven and enter Jannah.
yeah.
That's not like if I was a Christian that was sinning every day, and I actually meant to sin every day, and I wanted to sin every day as these Muslims are, I wouldn't enter paradise
You wouldn't,
because
even if you accept.
I'm
Okay,
blaspheming the spirit that is within me at that
okay,
point.
I see, I see. Now I have a question for you.
Sure.
W- You accepted God, and it transformed your life, and you're a better person now, and that's all amazing to hear. But when I hear that, I also hear like a maturation process. I hear that you've grown as an individual. Like even me, compared to when I was 21 and I converted to Islam, I made a lot of mistakes in my life. And where I am now, I'm 38. I got 5 kids. You have 5 kids. Do you really think that without Christianity you would be a bad person? Do you not believe? I believe, based on the short amount of time that I've known you, that even without a belief in God, you would still be a good person. Do you disagree with that?
Without my belief in God,
Yeah.
I don't think I would have as many children that I have in my house.
Hmm.
I do not believe I would have the wife that I have. I do not believe that I would have the life that I have, if I would even have a life at all.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, at the point you are now, let's say you became atheist, would your life crumble? Do you think that you'd become miserable and depressed? And
Oh,
do
I,
you believe you could still be a good person even without God? Do you need God to be a good person? That's what I'm
I,
asking you.
I don't I don't know how to answer this question, because I could never deny the existence of a God, not with the information that I have. And it's not just the information. There is something that I haven't told you. I come to Christianity through a miracle. So I was set on fire at a house.
Set on
Um,
fire. Wow, that
yeah,
sounds
the
bad.
whole back of me. I was running away from my friends, and my friends were behind me. They're like 20, 22-year-old men, and they were saying that it was like real TV. All they could see is flames. They couldn't see any skin at all. And I dropped and I rolled probably for about 20 yards, maybe 15 yards. And when I stopped, a friend of mine, or two friends of mine, had garden hoses, and they were putting me out. Now, after they put me out, they'd ran me a bath into the house. And because this was before I was Christian, and at the house I was at, there was a lot of drugs. So there was cocaine, there was weed, there was all this type of drugs at the house. So we weren't able to call the ambulance for me, because if the ambulance come, then the cops come, and then basically everybody in the house was going to jail. So I had to find a way to the hospital. So I actually had to call a friend to come and pick me up and drive me in their car to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, the doctors had looked me over and whatnot, and I had to go in for surgery. I had a pair of what they were called Umbro shorts. They were like a soccer short, and it was like polyester, and they had actually burnt into my leg. So they had to skin graft some skin from another part of my body. I think we all know what part they take the skin from, and they replaced it where the shorts were burnt into my leg. So because of all of that, the doctor told me, he's like, I'm just going to be honest with you. You're always going to have scars for the rest of your life. There's never going to be you can't go out into enough sun to try to cover them, just because of the surgery and how much burn you had over your body. You're always going to have scars. Now let's back up to when I was in the bathtub. When I was in the bathtub, I actually had a moment of, oh, what happened here? Am I going to make it? Right. So I finally, honestly, wholeheartedly spoke to God. And I said, God, if you're there, I just need one sign, and I will never doubt you again in my life, and I'll walk for you through the rest of my life. The sign that I was given was, I have no scars today. So that doctor was completely wrong. There's not one scar left on my body, not even where they removed the skin graft or where they attached the skin graft. You couldn't even tell I had been in a fire, or that I've even been burnt. So because I, as an atheist, as a denier of God, come to Christianity because of a miracle, I could never leave that God ever. So that's the reason why I wouldn't be able to answer the question on if I could still be a good person if I didn't have a God in my life. But I do believe an atheist can live a definitely a moral life. I just don't believe that they can justify the reason why they're living that moral life. That's all.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I was more curious about you in particular because, whenever someone has a transformative experience, I always wonder whether, like I even used to wonder about myself, what would happen if I ever left Islam. But in my case, I didn't. It seems like I'm still doing okay as an atheist. I don't find any real need for God in my life. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. That was a really interesting story, and wow, I'm glad you got out of that. That sounded bad.
Yeah, it was and of course we all do things when we're kids that we aren't very proud of, and that we
Yeah,
wish that we had a little bit more smarts when we were younger, and we probably wouldn't have did the things that we did, but
yeah,
that's what shapes us into the people we are today, of course, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
I have no regrets. I've I came to my Lord and Savior, so that's all that matters to me.
Do you want to take some questions before we wrap up?
That's what I was thinking. We're getting into about the minute and a half part, or the hour and a half mark here. So I was thinking maybe we would shut it down at about the hour and a half part. So, but if we do have people out there in the chat that want to come up and they want to ask Abdul Sameer any questions, I have added the link to the chat right now. So please go ahead and click that link and come on up and have an enjoyable and a respectful, please, conversation with Abdul Sameer.
So while we're waiting, I'll just address this point you made.
Okay.
And it's a comment too. It says, as atheists, of course, can live a moral life, but they can't justify it. Like my uncles are atheists. So my morality is based on what I. So how would you define morality, first of all?
Well, it depends on how you. What do you mean? How would I define morality?
So like when you say you can't justify your morality, and atheists cannot justify it.
Oh, why
What do you
you
mean by,
ought to do something or why you ought not to do
but what do you
something.
even mean by morality? Like, what does that mean to you? What's that word mean?
Good and
Is it
bad,
is it about it's
good and
about
evil, like
good and
yeah,
evil, right and
right and
wrong?
wrong. Yep.
Okay. So how would you define something as good or bad? Like what's the definition of something moral? Like if I told you,
Well,
like
it would
killing
almost
someone, like if
that would almost be like me asking you the question, why would you say that there are certain biblical verses that are cruel?
well, I would say it's written by men that didn't know better.
I know, but what do you mean by cruel?
So I have an answer for this. That I was thinking you would say whatever God says is good is good. So basically divine command
No,
theory.
I don't believe in the divine command theory.
Oh, you don't?
What I believe in is in the nature of God. God is not a murderer, so murder is wrong.
Okay.
So anything that goes against the nature of God is inherently wrong.
Okay. All right. So what I would say is when we talk about morality, we're talking about the in my from my perspective, it's all about well-being. It's all about how we treat others, because if we're in a world with just rocks and trees, there is no morality. Morality comes from how we interact with other people, how we behave, how we treat other people. So when we talk about murder, anything like that, what we're talking about is our relationship and with other people, right? So for me, morality is all based on well-being. You know,
Yeah, but
I Mhm.
as an atheist, though, how do you distinguish morality, let's say, from human to human, or let's say, human to vegetable?
What do you mean?
Well, aren't they all living things?
Are you saying how I treat vegetables?
No, like let's say not even vegetables. Let's say an insect.
Okay.
So if you were to kill a person, you would probably say that that's wrong. But
Yes.
if somebody was to kill an ant,
Mhm.
would you say that that is wrong?
So I would say it's a good question, actually. And some moralities, for example, Jainism, they go to the point where they're like, we don't kill any animals. They cover their mouths. They walk around with brooms to sweep away, sweep away insects. It's kind of funny, actually, but that's their morality. I would say it depends on why you're doing it. If you're killing the ant to be cruel, you're like pulling off its legs and you're being sadistic. You're actually torturing it. That would be wrong. If you're killing it because it's about to bite you, that's a
What?
different.
But why
It
would that
depends.
be? Why
So
would
it
that be wrong if you were being sadistic
so
to
the
the ant?
so because we know that other creatures that have just like we have feelings. And it's kind of tricky with an ant because ants are, if you said like a dog, there's a puppy.
Sure. Let's go with
Puppy's
the
easier
puppy.
because we know that puppies feel pain. We know puppies when they're happy. We know what it means for the puppy to thrive. We know what this means. A puppy has a good life versus puppy has a bad life. Puppy starves, puppy dies. Puppy has a good life. He's taken care of. He gets lots of love. We know that's good. So if I'm torturing an animal, that would be wrong because well, for one thing, it's a golden rule: do unto others as you can do to someone said ants can talk, do unto yourself, right? So it's like that's one thing. The second thing is because to me, like I said, my definition of morality is based on well-being, right? On thriving, the thriving of conscious creatures, then I would say that hurting another animal is immoral. Now, if the dog was about to bite me or bite my kid and I punched it, that's a different story, right? Or an alligator or whatever. But what you have to do is you have to maintain the moral sphere and make it as big as possible. So you don't use violence unless you have to use violence. So, unnecessarily escalating to punching or fighting or physical, that would be that would be breaking the moral sphere. So the reason I say my morality is based on well-being is because that is something that we can all agree upon, like something that we can all say that, you know, well-being is important, right? And that's when we can talk about morality. But
Well,
if we
instead of just saying well-being is important,
Mhm.
can you explain why well-being is important in an atheistic worldview? Because if we take a look at it
Yeah.
in the atheistic worldview, if we break it down into just the bare minimum argument, an atheist is the leftovers of a supernova, right?
Hmm.
The explosion of a star.
Not an atheist, everybody.
But I don't believe that. I know that you believe that,
Yeah.
but that's why I say atheists.
Human beings are.
Human
That would
beings
be more
in an
fair.
atheistic
Yeah.
worldview
Yes.
would be just explosion
Yes.
of the star
Cosmic
supernova.
dust. Cosmic dust is
Yeah.
how they put it. Yeah.
So I would use the I would use the argument that I've heard quite a few times.
Hmm.
If why why would an atheist ought to do something good for the well-being of another person? How are they able to justify that? And why does an atheist put value upon a human life? Because that's basically what they're doing, is they're placing value upon a human life at that point, right? Why?
So, I would say, okay, so basically, why value human life? Is that the main question?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
why does human life matter?
Why place value upon a human life when we're just the uh, evolved stardust,
So
basically?
so because people like to exist, we all want to exist. Most people don't want to die. My kids want to grow old and have families of their own, and my puppy wants to grow up as well. And we know he doesn't want to die. Like if he's faced with danger, he will do whatever he can to survive. So we know that existing is better than not existing. We know that. Except if someone wants to commit suicide. Now, of course, now we'll get into a dilemma of, well, what would the atheists say about someone that wants to kill themselves? Should they allow? That's a different story. But when you ask me a simple question, why should we value human life? Because we believe, at least I believe, that human life is something good. It's something enjoyable.
Like,
It's
okay,
something valuable.
but instead of just saying that,
Existing.
though,
Yeah.
how do you justify human life as being good or anything else? I know that we're just saying words,
Yeah.
but there's no actual justification why.
um so the I don't like, so the justification is that, again, it comes back to thriving. So like I said, existing is better than not existing. So there's a life that exists, we would want to help that life to continue existing, because existence, as most of us would agree, all of us actually, that and a lot of what we believe comes from evolution. I don't know if you believe in evolution or not, but like the instinct to survive, the drive, if we didn't have this drive, we wouldn't exist today. The people that didn't have that drive, they got eliminated down the genetic tree, because the ones that actually have this, which is why, even people that want to commit suicide, it's one of the most difficult things ever, because everything in our genetics is telling us you should live, and you should reproduce. That's another extremely powerful motivator in people's lives, is this desire to reproduce. Because again, we have these instincts because of evolution, because If we didn't, the ones that didn't, if you had two different, species, or variations of a gene, the one that's more likely to want to survive is the one that's going to survive, right? And Richard Dawkins, in his book The Selfish Gene, has explained this quite beautifully. But back to your question about morality, I just think that it's something like benefit, like it's something that it's kind of natural, like it's kind of obvious, it's self apparent that existing is better than not existing. We can agree on that. You would agree with that, I would agree that existing is better than non-existing. So I don't need to go to the Bible or the Quran or any other holy book to tell me like this is good and bad. And my problem with religious morality is that a lot of these books have bad things in them that we know
Well,
they're bad.
but that's my problem with an
Yeah.
atheist,
Mhm.
right? They keep saying that there's bad things in this religion.
Yes.
What is your criteria to judge
Human
between
thriving. So
something is good or bad?
for example, slavery is bad. The Quran
No,
and the
no.
Bible.
Let's not just go into. Let's just go into good or bad.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so human
Why?
thriving,
Why would you say? How would you be able to say something is bad? Do you believe in objective morality or do you believe in subjective morality?
subjective. Yeah, so
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 you
my
can't say something is bad then.
no, 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 that's not what
It's only
subjective
bad to
morality
you.
means. No, 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 yeah, subjective morality means, I think everybody has subjective morality, because your morality has to be based on something. Your morality, you're saying it's not based on, what the Bible says. It's not divine. Well, it is based on what the Bible says, I guess, right? Would you say your morality is based on the biblical text?
My morality is based on how God has described his nature to
Okay,
us.
sure.
Yes.
So in my case, so you believe the Bible is the word of God. You believe there's a God. You believe God revealed the Bible, and you believe the Bible reflects His divine attributes and the moral truths of this world. Is that correct so far?
Sure.
Okay. In my case, I don't believe any of that. I'm going based on what is something that I can measure, something that I can see. I can see someone suffering. I can see this is bad. Give them money. This is good. They can buy dinner for themselves. I can see that this person has something in the eye. I help them take it out. This is
Oh,
good,
I
right?
think I think I understand it now. Is it like more of a feelings based morality then?
Well, the feelings part definitely comes
I,
from, again,
now
evolution. Like
I was going to say
I
I'd only
don't
say
think,
that
no, it's not
because I
feelings for sure. Well,
because that's an irrational way to determine morality. I actually debated Dr.
yeah.
Stephen Law on this as well, and he
Mhm.
actually said that anybody that uses feelings to for morality to judge their morality is not really that consistent.
I don't think
And
it's feelings, because feelings are the reason I'm not saying it's feelings is because I'm 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 using rationality to calculate these things. I'm saying thriving is good, not thriving is bad. You could say it agrees with my feelings on the matter. Like, I would agree that slavery is bad because I feel it feels wrong, but that's not the reason why. Because I might personally feel that homosexuality is disgusting, yet I don't think it's immoral. I don't personally want to be involved in homosexuality. I don't think that doesn't appeal to me. That it's frankly disgusting because I'm straight, and that sort of thing doesn't appeal to me, right? Sexually. However, it's not immoral, so it's not feelings. It's you. I'm using my rationality to look at the harms and benefits of. And I'll give you an example. Like in Islam, cousin marriage is not forbidden. It's okay to marry your cousin. However, this has led to a lot of problems in the Muslim world
mhm.
because of repeated cousin marriage. I don't think it's wrong to marry your cousin, but I do think it's wrong to have kids with your cousin if you know that the outcome of this is going to be genetic defects, or there's a higher risk of that. You're basically taking you're basically your child may suffer because of your decision to have a child, and you know that because of the science, so that would be immoral. According to Islam, it's okay to marry your cousin. There's no rule. Because Muhammad didn't know better, right? So that's why I'm saying that morality is something that we can learn from, and we can use information about the world as we learn about science and all that stuff. to improve the quality of life for others. Right? It's not stuck to what the Bible said or what the Quran said. It's something that goes, that we can use. It's not going to be stagnant. It can't be stagnant because things change in in the world. There's new existence, there's new situations that couldn't have been described in any of those books. So what would we do about that, right? Like at the end of the day, let's say we talk about cloning babies. The Bible doesn't talk about cloning babies. The Quran doesn't talk about cloning babies. How do you determine whether it's moral or immoral? You have to use your reasoning. You have to use your brain. You have to try to see it. Wouldn't you agree?
It in a way, I definitely have a different I definitely disagree in um, the reasons why we believe in morality. Of course, I believe that we're created in the image of God, and being created in that image of God, we bear His image. So, and anything that goes against His nature is wrong. Anything that goes for His nature is right. So that's my view, and that's the reason, that's justification for being able to um, apply, let's say, a value to human life, right? Because
So
we're all made, and we're all under God's, like, there's justification why we have love for humankind, why we place value upon life, right? But I can't see any justification like that coming from evolved stardust. Now, speaking on subjective morality, um, would you agree that you couldn't say that somebody is absolutely bad, like somebody is evil? Like, you couldn't say Hitler is evil. You could say Hitler is evil to me, right? But you couldn't flat out say he's an evil person, right?
yeah, the only way I think you can, well, in both cases, whether you're using religious morality, which you consider to be absolute, or you're using secular morality, which is relative to human thriving, I think in both cases, there's premises that are being made. So in your case, the premise would be that the Bible is the word of God, that the Bible reflects God's moral truths, that the Bible is accurately preserved. You have to have all these premises in order to make that statement, that objective statement. And I could theoretically play the same game. I mean, respectfully saying this, I don't mean you're playing games, but what I mean is, if you if I said that I believe that Flying Spaghetti Monster is the creator of the universe, shut the door, please. Flying Spaghetti Monster revealed this book to me that has objective moral truths that just happen to shut the door, please. That just happen to agree with secular morality. Now, my basis for secular morality is now objective, is it not? Like, how is it any different than what theists are saying?
Well, to me, that's just a straw man argument, appealing to what somebody else believes in to make up a theory that has never ever existed. So I don't entertain questions like that.
Well, it's a thought experiment. It's a thought experiment that I might not like what how okay, so basically Muslims say the exact same thing to me that you just told me, that you have to understand that Allah is the creator of the universe, that He revealed this book, and his reality reflects the objective morality that we believe in, but you don't believe in that. So you wouldn't be able to talk to a Muslim about morality, because the Muslim would say, well, slavery is fine.
Yeah,
You
I
could
don't
say no,
believe that.
slavery is,
I
but
don't believe that.
you guys are both objective, but you're
No,
speaking past each other.
no, a Muslim doesn't have objective morality.
A Muslim doesn't have objective
No,
morality.
they
How's
don't
that?
believe that. They don't believe that they're created in the image of God.
No, but they do believe in objective morality. They believe that the Quran
No, they
and
believe in divine command theory.
they believe in divine command theory, but they are moral realists.
I
They believe
I
in
know.
objective
No, I
morality.
understand they're moral
Yeah,
realist.
yeah.
They say they're moral realist.
But then
They're
that's what anyone does.
technically not moral realists,
That's what
though.
everybody says. You're making a claim, they're making a claim. You're both making claims. That's all you can do is make a claim that
Okay,
I am a moral
what is
realist.
their justification for claiming moral realism then?
So I was on Clubhouse a couple of days ago, and I had like 7 Muslims like arguing with me about this, and they said that basically what similar to what you said, that we believe that the Quran, that Allah is the creator of the universe. Allah revealed to Muhammad these moral truths through the Quran. that the Quran and the Sunnah reflect the reality of God's existence and his rules of the universe, objective moral realities. So that's basically what you said, except they're using
No,
Islam as Christianity.
no. You keep going to this divine command theory.
But that,
I never said
why is
that I
that not,
accept divine command
you don't
theory.
accept it, but why is that not? So whether they accept divine command theory or whether they're saying that this, you know, God's nature is what is reflected in the Quran, kind of like what you're saying, God's nature is reflected in the Bible. Maybe it's not divine command theory. Maybe I'm getting that part wrong. But regardless, they're still moral realists and they still believe in objective morality. That's the number one thing they use against atheists. They say, you don't believe in objective morality. How can you say Islam is wrong? That's
Yes.
what I
And
hear all the time.
no, and I hear what you're saying, and I hear that they're saying it all the time.
Yeah.
But the problem is what they're saying is wrong because of the divine command theory. And anybody that says because God said something, it's good and true,
Yeah.
that's not a logical argument.
Yeah,
And if
because
you're
of
going to
difficult.
debate an
Yeah.
atheist and you're going to
Yeah.
use divine command theory, you're going to get handed the worst butt kicking you've ever had in your life. And the only way to address an atheist when it comes to objective morality
Yeah.
is through the revelation that we've received of the nature of God and knowing that God's created us in his image,
So can I
right?
ask you a question then about something that stands out that seems to go against that from the Bible?
Sure.
So the common example which I read is that the Midianites being, enslaved by the Israelites and God telling them to keep your virgin women alive for the men. How does that reflect the nature of God?
Okay. Why did that? Why were the Midianites attacked?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay. No, the reason why I asked this question is a
Does it
lot of
matter why
people
though?
a lot of the reason why I asked this question is a lot of people ask things that they don't know questions for, and they phrase things in a certain way that they don't understand, right? So can you give me the reference where what happened with these Midianites?
Well, you know what? I will let you explain the reference. I
Well,
don't have it handy. Yeah.
because it's a
Maybe I'm missing the context or something. Is it like a context that makes this different?
it's a condemnation upon a set of people by God, wouldn't it be?
So you're saying God was justified in doing this because this was a punishment?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
slavery is okay. So how is that objective then? So
What do you
slavery is
mean?
okay. So against your enemies, Muslims do this too against the enemies.
No.
Slavery,
Okay.
but Christians don't believe in slavery anymore. But I'm
No,
saying the
because
Bible allowed this.
we don't. If you look at the slavery in the Bible, which is there,
Yeah.
and you look at slavery in the Quran, which is there,
Yes.
in your eyes, are they the same?
No.
Okay. Which is worse?
Well, I would say the Quran is worse because it's still applicable today.
And even if the Jewish one was applicable today, would they be even?
That I don't have an answer. I don't
Was
know.
there a time frame for slaves in the in Judaism in the Old Testament?
That I don't know.
See, that this is the whole thing. That when people start talking about slavery in the Bible, they have no idea what they're speaking about. So when these virgins were taken as slaves, they were married. They weren't slaves. And you could only be a slave for a certain amount of time. And this was because back in the day, people would sell themselves for their family to be slaves. So people would go into slavery on their own admission. Now, getting to this this war where God had said, you go in and kill everybody, women and children, and take the virgins for yourself. This was because those people had taken the Israelites from God. And what had happened is they used their women to do this. Now, everybody was to die except the virgins. Why would the virgins not die, and why were the virgins kept alive? The reason is because they didn't entice the men of Israel to leave their God. So they weren't under the condemnation of the punishment. So they were taken by the Israelites. They were married off. They had a couple of years of slavery because of the war and things like this, and they were let go.
Mm.
So this isn't the slavery when it comes to the Quran. And slaves in Judaism had rights. If a slave got hit, he was free. You couldn't
Mhm.
beat your slave in Judaism.
Okay. So
Like,
but
there's a
this is
lot of
now,
things that people
yeah,
don't
so
read when it comes to
yeah.
the Old Testament. They see this word slavery and they're like, oh, I don't like it. It's a bad thing. But guess what? You accept subjective morality. So you can't say it's a bad thing. It's only bad to you.
We can say it's bad based on now human thriving, and we know better that we shouldn't take slaves and we shouldn't punish
So
women
slavery
for
was a bad thing when it come to Egypt.
slavery is a bad thing in general, yes.
So if slavery didn't happen in Egypt, could everything that had been built in Egypt have been built?
It shouldn't have been built. Maybe it should not have been built because it was built on slavery. Those people didn't deserve to be slaves, I guess, right?
But
I
why?
mean, what's more important, the
Aren't
pyramid
aren't
or the
we?
people?
Yeah, but aren't you a slave today?
How am I a slave?
You're a slave to work.
No, but I'm
You're a
free to
slave to
leave.
bills.
Well, so slavery
You're
could
not afraid. You're not able to leave
so
unless you
f-
die.
so slavery is a relative term. You're right. You could use it to mean anything and everything from, working 9 to 5,
Yeah,
or
which is the
listening to your
reason why. Well,
or,
that's the reason why I bring it up
or
is
listening to
because a
your
lot of
parents. But hold on.
atheists like to
Yeah.
use this word
No, I'm not.
slavery in the
I'm not done
Bible as a
though. Yeah.
bad thing when it wasn't a bad thing.
No, but it is a bad thing. Hold on. I'm not done.
Not in the Bible, it's not.
Well, okay. So the reason I brought this up, my question was, I mean, yeah, we can argue that, but my question was, so God allowed this, but objectively, I thought, am I misunderstanding something? Objective morality, doesn't that mean no morality is fixed the nature of God? Why would He allow it for certain circumstances? Like, I'm
Didn't I
confused
explain
why,
that to you already? It's because the
because it was a
virgins
punishment. So could it
there
not be? So could it not be
what do
today
you
the same punishment?
so you understood from what I said that those virgins that were taken into slavery were
They,
punished then. That's what you understood from what I
no,
said?
not the virgins. Well, the virgins
Okay,
are
because
punished
they were
because
the ones in their slavery and that's what we're speaking about.
yeah, but the other ones were killed. The other
Yeah.
non-virgin were killed, and the
Yeah.
men were killed.
We have laws we have laws in the land, right? So
Yeah,
if the law of the land was if you went into the store and you stole a bag of chips,
yeah,
you were to lose your hand
yeah.
and you went into that store after knowing the consequences and you stole something, could you cry that you had your hand taken?
Well, so
The
I
answer
think
is
that
no,
yeah, I think
right?
that's the problem here is we're now justifying that. Well, that's my question. Okay, so okay, maybe if that's not the perfect example, you're still admitting that slavery is in the Bible. So my question is, how is
Yeah.
it objective then? If it's not allowed today, but it was allowed back then, how is it objective? Forget the virgins. That was just an example that
What do you
came to
mean
mind.
how is it objective? Is it objectively good?
Does it is it now not allowed, but it was allowed during certain circumstances? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. At that point it was just a circumstance. I don't believe I'm not looking at that as a moral or an immoral decision as an objective morality. When God makes a judgment, it's a judgment. That's like as
Okay.
in saying, if you know the consequence for your actions and you still commit those actions, you can't cry about those consequences because you knew of it before you did those actions.
But it's starting to sound like divine command theory, because what you're saying is if God rules something and we go against that, there can be consequences.
Well, there was laws, of
So
course, right?
the laws, so basically if you go against God's laws, you can be killed. That's
That's a
what you're
sin.
saying. So
But by
that's
God, why not?
so isn't that, how is that different from apostasy law, where Muslims say that if you go against God's divine religion and you leave Islam, you can be killed?
Explain how it's the same thing.
Well, that's what I'm asking. If you're
I don't
saying
believe
that
it's the same thing. You do, so
you're
you
saying
need to explain how it is.
death is the consequence of sin. You said that. Did I misunderstand that? You said it was okay for God to kill all of the Midianites because that's the consequence for going against God. It was okay for God to basically
No,
like
okay,
Noah's flood.
no,
He killed all of
but
humanity.
you're not understanding this.
Okay,
You're taking laws and you're superseding it into objective morality should be for all time,
that's what I'm
and
trying to understand. Yeah.
yeah, you're not.
So objective morality doesn't mean that the morality is the same for all times. It changes.
No, it is the same for all times, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to take one specific spot. Now, yes, slavery is, in my eyes, completely wrong when you take somebody against their will
Okay.
and treat them as a certain way. Yes, that is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
objectively.
Okay.
But slavery, in its own sense, has more than one type of outlook to it. If we look at slavery in the Bible, it's a much more mild type of slavery, but the word slavery itself is a word that is very provocative,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's used to it's used to promote hatred. It's used to promote this type
Well,
of
it.
anguish towards something else. Like
Yeah.
you'll always say slavery's wrong, right?
Yeah, because we believe that now based on the
But there's
things we've
different
gone
forms
through
of
as
slavery.
humanity. Yeah, because you're right. You're right. Jonathan Brown. Do you know Jonathan Brown? Dr. Jonathan Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wrote a big book on slavery, which I
Well,
bought and
Dr.
read.
Jonathan Brown, isn't he the Sunni scholar that actually admitted that there was no evidence of Sahih al-Bukhari, or sorry, Imam al-Bukhari until roughly about 350 to 400 years
Yeah, he has
after
a
his
book.
death?
He has a book on hadith as well. I don't know about that particular claim, but he's said a lot of, yeah, he said a lot of things. He has a book on slavery, and he makes kind of like similar points to what you're making, that slavery can mean different things and there's different forms of slavery, and some forms of slavery were actually beneficial for the people that were in it. So yeah, that's true. It's not one size fits all for sure, and it's definitely, varies from,
So
situation to
my
situation. Yeah.
my question would be for you.
Hmm.
If it was better for my well-being
Hmm.
to kill somebody else and
Yes.
take their stuff,
Yes.
how is that morally wrong
Yeah.
in a
This is a
subjective worldview?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So it's not based on subjective worldview, but based on humanistic worldview or secular morality, secular humanism. I would say, and this is a question, like, let's say there was a doctor under utilitarianism, you would, that if that doctor could kill somebody and take his heart, take his eyes, take
No.
his.
Let's just go with the example that I give.
Okay.
Let's just say I'm in the place that I am,
Yep.
right? I'm working
Sure.
48 to 50 hours a week to try to
Yep.
support my family, things like this. But what would be wrong for me to provide a better well-being for my family and my grandchildren and things to this nature
Yeah.
by killing this person? It's benefiting my well-being as well as others' well-being. So how could you say that that in itself is morally wrong?
Yeah, so that's what I was giving the example of a doctor and, taking, but same idea as what you're saying. It's just this example was more clear because, the doctor, let's say he can save 5 lives by killing one person. It's the same idea. And we'll finish up with this because we've been going on for 2 hours. I can see it. Someone's coming to talk to you. So basically the same idea is the answer to this is, if we lived in a world where anyone could be killed at any point in time in order for someone else to benefit, that would not be a world that anyone would want to live in. It would not be a good world. It would decrease well-being. It would not increase well-being. It might increase well-being for you, but part of my morality is that do not harm others. So you need to basically maintain the
Why?
moral sphere, because I want to live in the world where someone doesn't go and kill my kids
But
because
why though?
because it adds to my
Just because you
well-being.
want to? Is that your justification? You just want
Well,
to do that, or
because it makes the world a better place, that we
but
don't go
how?
around killing each other.
Well,
Okay,
you keep saying better and things to this
yeah.
nature, but what do you
Okay,
mean by better?
I explained to you better. By better, I mean like what you instinct. If I said, "Do you want to have a better life?" you would automatically know what I mean by that. If there's
Yeah,
someone in a poor
I would love
country
to have a
that's
better
starving,
life
I
too.
mean, we can objectively list the things that make a better life if you want. Quality of life would include, having a healthy, healthy body,
To certain
having
people,
money, having freedom, having time.
a bunch of
Um,
different people have different views, though.
but
That would
but
be
in
subjective, right?
general, universally, human beings would all agree, for the most part, on what it means to have a good life, what it means to be happy. You don't need to tell a kid, like what it means to be happy, because he knows if he's well fed, his mom loves him, he spends time with his family. These are the natural things we've evolved to value because that's what makes us human. So we can say, oh, what do you mean by good? What do you mean by
It
well-being?
seems like we have an instinct
Yes,
to
we
that.
do, and that's
Oh,
evolved.
where did this instinct come from?
It evolved. The
How?
selfish gene is because
Can you
because
can
because
you give
this
us
yeah.
uh
So in for example, with chimps, okay, with chimps, there's a study. Actually, I have the note handy. It's actually a funny video. If you look up the video by, hold on. Oh yeah, France Deval. So he's a biologist or whatever, and he has a study where he has two chimps, and the chimps, they're given a prize for doing a task. So they do something they're supposed to do, like let's say press a button, and they get a prize. Press a button, they get a prize. So there's two chimps, they can see each other. They both press a button, they both get a cucumber. The next time they both press a button, one gets a cucumber, the other one gets a delicious, tasty grape. What does the chimp do? He throws the grape at the researcher. He gets mad, even though he could have had a cucumber. Sorry, not throws a grape, throws a cucumber. When he sees what his friend got and it's unfair, he instinctively gets angry because we've evolved a lot of these mechanisms like tit for tat. If you want to read The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, there's like a mathematical demonstrated, like this stuff has been very well studied, why we've evolved. Like a tit for tat is the best sort of thing. Like let's say someone wants to fight you, animals, you can see this with animals don't typically go and like fight each other unless, for example, they're going to get a prize, for example, a better mate or some food. And the reason they don't is because the other animal is likely to fight back. If the other animal didn't fight back, then what would happen is that anyways, it's a long, complicated example, but the point is, even with animals, there is some sort of morality. There's some sort of sense of justice. There's some sort of sense of fairness that comes into humans as well. We've evolved these things because it helps us for survival. The reason why we find incest disgusting is because it leads to genetic deformities and it causes damage to your genealogy, and to the point where if you do incest, you will end up with, like, your kids will be out of the gene pool. So these type of instincts are passed on based on the viability to survive. It's a meme. It's the same idea as memes. The better memes survive and the worst memes don't survive, right? So there's a lot of science behind this that we don't have time to get in. You
Yeah,
look like you want to
yeah,
say
because
something.
I started laughing as soon as you brought up the Dawkins
Yeah,
theory, because
Dawkins' book
I
is
don't
great.
actually yeah, I would love to have a discussion on you about Dawkins, because I honestly think that he refutes himself in his own in his own books and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So
I'm not an expert for sure. People are asking, are we animals? Yes, we are animals. That's what I mean. Obviously, I'm an atheist. I believe materialism. I believe there is no soul, there's no God, there's no hereafter, there's no heaven and hell. That's it. We are what we are. We are machines, right?
can I
And the
ask you
nature.
one thing then? Because
Yep.
you don't accept God, you don't accept heaven and hell, and this will probably be where we end our
Yeah. Yeah.
discussion tonight,
Yes.
only
Yes.
because we're into the 2 hour mark. We may
Yeah.
have another
Yes.
one in a few weeks or
Yeah.
so to continue, but where did good and evil come from?
Well, I don't use the word evil because I think it's kind of
Okay, where did good and bad come from?
well, that's what I'm saying. It's based on what you consider good and bad. So, like, the animal that's being eaten would consider us doing bad to eating him. The human being that's eating an animal that just wants to survive, he's just trying to survive. The lion that's eating,
But
so
where
it
did it
depends on
come
you.
from?
It's subjective. It's subjective. There's no objective good and bad.
Okay, so but you would say something is good or something is bad,
Based
right?
on my presumption that human thriving is what
Okay,
yeah.
where did the thought of something being good or the thought of something being bad come from? Is it from the fish?
The fish?
Well, you're going through evolution, so you must
Yes.
agree that we were fish.
Yes. So
Is
where
that where
did
it
good and
started?
no, 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 no. Obviously, human beings, Homo sapiens, at a certain point, we received rationality. We're able to
Oh,
ponder and think, and
so it started in human beings then?
what's the good and bad? I mean, it's
Yeah.
subjective, right? I mean, the dogs and to a dog, good and bad would be like, don't bite me, and get my dinner. That's
So
good and
so
bad.
animals do still
I
have morality, as you said, then, right?
I think they have like a less
So does it
refined.
does it go all the way back to the fish? Is what my question
Well,
is.
fish don't really have. Okay, so now this is getting into biology now, and I'm not a biologist, so I don't know at what point do animals. They have tests for animals, like they have a mirror. They'll put a mirror. They'll say, does animal like recognize itself? There's different tests to measure consciousness and what level of consciousness different animals have. I don't know about fish. Fish I don't think have any real like rationality, obviously.
Because that's where we started to evolve from, right?
Well, we started from single cellular organisms, not fish. Fish is already like millions of whatever evolutions past the single cell evolution. We
We're
started with a
basic.
single cell.
I could say that we're stardust too, but the initial.
Fish is not initial. Fish is you just pick the point along the line.
Okay, what was before fish?
I'm
What did
not a
we evolve from before
biologist.
that?
I don't have a science background. I'm a computer guy. I'm just going by the little bit that I've learned. You're asking the wrong. If you want
Because
to
it was
debate
basically
evolution,
algae.
if you want to debate evolution, you got to talk to Aron Ra. Like he's much better at this topic. That's his like
Oh,
he
he's a
studied this
joke.
biology. Don't talk to me about this because I don't know this stuff. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna look like an
Aaron
idiot.
Rod to me is a joke. I think that he's funny, and I think that he just trolls um, Christians. Honestly, I don't think that he actually believes in half the things that he says. But we could leave it at that as being our last comments of the evening. So I do thank you very much, Abdul, for coming on the show. It was very nice to have this discussion with you, how we started off with you, how you left Islam. We got into a little bit of the Muslim arguments when it comes to Christianity, some of the Christian arguments when it comes to Islam, and then we jumped into morality. I kind of thought morality would come into it because anytime I'm speaking to an atheist, and even when I was an atheist, morality was the first debate that always popped up. And morality was one of the things that brought me to being a Christian, because I realized that all over the world, that when a baby dies, everybody has that same feeling. It's not subjective; it is objective. So I do thank you very much, Abdul, for showing up and coming on the live stream and being with me today. Is there
Oh
anything that
yeah.
you'd like to say to everybody before we close out?
No, that was good. The modality thing was not planned. I think it just came up because I was debating this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to make a video on this in the next few days. So it's kind of interest. I was more interested not in debating morality, but in kind of understanding from you why you like how you see the world, and whether you think Christianity without God. But you explained the answer to that. But yeah, no, it was great. Like it was fun. It was a good conversation. Thank you for having me on here, and stay well, and we'll hopefully have some future conversations in the
Yeah,
future.
definitely. I hope we do. And actually, the reason why me and Abdul Sameer are actually having this live stream is he actually contacted me and actually helped me out with a slideshow to try to have a little bit more of a professional view when it comes to me presenting some information. And I do thank you very much, Abdul, because I went right at it that day and the next day, and I'm starting to get better doing some slideshows. And I do see how that is a little bit better and is a little bit more professional when you're trying to
Yes.
get your point across. So I do thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Alrighty, and as we always do before we leave, I want to thank my Lord and Savior for blessing us with the ability to be here and still breathing today. I want to thank my wife for being the rock behind me that's supporting me. Always into my live streams, always giving me the 4 or 5 hours a night that I need to study and to do the live stream. And of course, to my children that are always trying to be quiet for me while I'm doing my live streams and support me in that as well. And for all of you subscribers and for everybody that'll be watching this later on YouTube, thank you so much for your support. Thank you very much, Abdul Sameer, for showing up. And God bless everybody and have a wonderful night.